Okay, so this is a 2003 to 2000, this is a 2004 Honda Accord, and my left front brake caliper needs to be replaced. So since it's the left front, and I know the caliper is like way in the front over here, that's why I turned the steering wheel all the way to the left. And then I'm going to jack up the car. And as you see, I already loosened these lug nuts relatively loose so that I jack up the car, I can just remove the wheel right away. And since I'm just replacing the caliper, which comprises of the caliper and the caliper bracket, which is right here, and after that I need to bleed it with .3 brake fluid, a type that is made just for Asian vehicles, and then clean off all the parts with my brake cleaner. So I'm just going to be replacing the caliper because and I can't replace the pad on just the left side. If I replace the pad, I need to replace both sides, left front brake pad, but just the caliper is worn out, so we're going to replace that. And the reason why is because the old caliper is kind of seized, in which after driving a while, I touch it and it's kind of hot, while the other three wheels, they don't have that hot feeling. Okay, now it's jacked up on the jack stands. The safety and precautionary measure that I have taken, in which everyone should take. So as you see, we're servicing the left front wheel. So I jacked it up. There's two jack stands that I put, and I even put the wheel down there. And that way, in case it falls, it's gonna land on these, but highly unlikely because I've lowered this one, so it's being supported by this. And if it falls, it lands on this. Okay, so now let's use a 14 millimeter and loosen our banjo bolt, which is this one. And then this one we will need to open later, but that is our bleeder valve for bleeding the brakes after all this. And we're gonna use 12 millimeter for the sliding pin bolts. The first one up here and the second one down here, in which we will need to use 12 millimeters for these two, a 14 mil for this one, and then later on we'll need to use a 17 mil for these two, first one and second one, and those are the ones that hold the caliper bracket in place. Okay, so there's a bit of change of plans. I literally just removed the two 17 mils that hold the bracket in place, and we're gonna just pull out the bracket and the caliper together. And I opened up the banjo bolt, so it's dripping .3 brake fluid. Whatever you do, get to the top of the car. While it's dripping down, it is leaking from the reservoir as well, so top off that reservoir so you're not losing too much. And then right away, we are literally just going to pull out the we're not even going to bother with these two sliding pin bolts. We literally just removed this one and this one. These are the 17 mils, and then the caliper and bracket are going to come off together as a system. I'm literally just going to use this. I was just beating it like this, and that's how we're going to get caliper and bracket system out together. All right, there she is. That's the old one. I got it off by literally beating the crap out of it, and now we're gonna put the new one on. So what we got to do is there's our brake pads, and they have backing plates, and then with the backing plates we got to we got to remove the old pads because we're still going to use them because they're still really good, and the backing plates as well, and we're going to transfer that over to our new caliper over here, and then we're going to bleed it with my homemade .3 brake bleeder kit, which is super easy. Okay, so our new banjo bolt, the one that is 14 mil, and once we pull it out, it has an outer seal and an inner seal. So the inner seal is stuck on the old caliper, but good thing this one came with a new banjo bolt with a new outer seal and inner seal. So it goes on like this. So make sure it applies on something like, so here's the bolt with the inner seal, with the outer seal, and then the inner seal, and then the caliper. So make sure you have both the seals on that banjo bolt. We'll just tuck it in here so we don't lose it. Okay, I'm not even joking. So with the old caliper, with its brake pad and backing plate for both the inner and outer, so this is the inner and this is the outer, just hit at it. Like, get like a rubber mallet and hit this point right here, and also hit this point right here, and then just push it out. Okay, so this one is our outer pad for the left front side, and this is our inner pad with the respective backing plates that are on the back. So here's the pad, on the back is the backing plate, and make sure it goes on in this exact sequence. And yeah, and then after that, spray some brake cleaner on your rotor and on everything, because that .3 fluid is very, very messy. And we need brake cleaner so that way when the pads break and there's going to be enough friction. So it's very troubling, but hit hard and get those pads out. Make sure, so before we transition the pads, we have our outer pad and our inner pad. So they swap on to this in the exact same configuration. There's, how do I say it? There's these little metal things on the side, and that's for both outer pad and inner pad. So make sure you mount those on as well, because these little metal things enable things to operate smoothly. Okay, now you have these little metal things. These are on the old pads. We're not even going to bother, but these are the ones on the new pads, on the new caliper. And I'm talking about this little metal thingy and this one, which we mounted it on, and we can even keep for parts. We can pull out the old one from the old one. Pads are mounted on, the outer and inner brake pad and the rotor. Now what you got to do, because friction is so important, spray brake cleaner on this, spray brake cleaner on the pads, and then we're gonna get ready for the remounting process. One more thing, so my .3 brake fluid reservoir, when it gets low, make sure it doesn't fully empty, or else you're going to bleed the entire master cylinder. So like once every 2 minutes, check that it's getting low, fill up with .3 brake fluid. So later on when you bleed it, you literally only have to bleed the left front. Otherwise that thing goes empty. You have to bleed master cylinder and you have to bleed all 4 wheels, which is a giant pain in the butt. Sorry guys, I didn't want to lose too much of my brake fluid, so I just reinstalled everything quickly. So our bracket mounting bolts, one here on the bottom and the other one here on the top, I actually used an 11/16 to put these two on because I couldn't find my 17 mil, and my banjo bolt, which is the banjo bolt, which is the one right here, as you see, with the inner seal and the outer seal, and that's mounted on. And then we have to torque these to spec. I actually used a what is it, a 7/16, because this new one I used a 7/16 to put it on, but whatever we loosen we got to put back on. So if we're gonna torque it back to exact specifications, what it was is that it was the banjo bolt, which is this, needs to be torqued down to 25 foot-pounds, and the two bracket bolts that I put back on, those need to be torqued down to 79 foot-pounds. So you need to buy a torque wrench and do those things. Okay, now that everything is torqued to spec, I had to convert from foot-pounds to Newton meters because my torque wrench does its readings in Newton meters. So the banjo bolt, which is this one, I put it to 25 foot-pounds, which is 34 Newton meters, and the two caliper bracket bolts, which is one right here and one up top on here, those two both need to be at 79 foot-pounds. So on the torque wrench, they both are tightened to 107 Newton meters. Now, no more brake fluid leaking, but now we gotta flush it. And I mean bleed it, and that means get rid of all the air bubbles. So here we have our bleeder screw right here, and we're literally just gonna loosen it, and then we're gonna put some .3 brake fluid inside the bottom, and then we're gonna get a buddy to step on the brakes, and then that's gonna get rid of all the air bubbles. So fill this up, and then also get this, and then we're gonna start the car, pump the brakes, and then that's gonna rid all the air bubbles. Okay, so here's our bleeder system with .3 fluid in the bottom, and then we have this, we have it attached to the bleeder valve, and then that's how we're going to get rid of all the air bubbles and get a buddy to step on the brakes repetitively, but going up and down, depressing the brakes while you watch the master cylinder doesn't run out of .3 brake fluid. So we're going to get to that, and once you see the tubing is completely free of air bubbles, then that's how you know that the system is flushed and that the left front brake is safe. Okay, we are going to do a rebleed. So one small mistake I made, so crack open the bleeder valve, make sure that hose is like really snug on there, and then make another hole for getting all the air out. That way, when your buddy presses and lets go of the brake, the fluid is gonna just go through nice and smooth, and then extra air is gonna have an exit system to exit the system clearly. And then after we're done bleeding the brakes, you'll know it's done if this is still like not emptied all the way. We're almost, that's kind of scary, but we got to fill this up again. And then we have to make sure the entire system is free of any brake fluid, is free of any air bubbles. This entire hose has no air bubbles in it, all yellow .3 brake fluid at the same time that this is filled up. And then that's it. After that, you have to tighten your bleeder valve, put your wheels on, and then put your wheels on, and then make sure that your pedal does not have a mushy feeling, and then that's all you need to do, and then the car is finished.